There is now one more true story, a story of his glory, his Nama's glory. Dr. Shankarrajulu is one of the oldest devotees of Bhagwan. He was here as the principal of the government college, Tiruvannamalai, for quite a few years. He used to go to Bhagwan every day and spend quite some time with him. He had a professor brother, a very learned man, who worked in one of the universities in Tamil Nadu. He was so learned that the vice chancellor of the university made friends with him, and they used to be together discussing so many things, the scientific advances and discoveries and all that. So they were quite good friends. But one day, the vice chancellor sent a voucher through one of the attendants to this professor. Now, one word about this professor. He's a non-believer in God. He's an atheist. He belongs to that group which says that all those who worship God are fools. They are simply wasting time and they are cheating others. So this atheist professor, when he saw the voucher, he was shocked, because it's a voucher which demanded his signature for the purchase of some books to the tune of several lakhs. And what is more, these books belong to some other departments. So naturally, he told the attendant, I would have one word with the Vice Chancellor before I would sign it. The Vice Chancellor was very annoyed that this professor, whose friend, a great friend of his, did not cater to his demand. So he began to harass him in many ways. It became intolerable for the professor. He was suffering. And then he decided to inform the syndicate of the university so that they would go into investigation. So when he wrote a letter to the syndicate, what happened was the Vice Chancellor denied outright the purchase of books at all. So the whole thing turned worse for the professor. The syndicate said, you are unnecessarily implicating the Vice Chancellor on false charges. And therefore, we have to go into investigation about your career, and we are likely to terminate your services. So they gave a warning to him. This professor was very upset. It was exactly at that time Dr. Shankarrajulu chose to visit his brother, the professor brother, who is a non-believer in God. So naturally, the atheist professor told his brother, Dr. Shankarrajulu, a very staunch devotee of Yogi Ramsuratkumar, about his problem. He said the next day the syndicate was going to meet, and then they would be terminating his services. There would be proceedings against his behavior. Dr. Shankarrajulu was shocked also. But then he said, I have my God and Guru, Yogi Ramsuratkumar. I would chant his name and pray to him. He will definitely help you. But the pity is, this atheist professor did not take it seriously. In fact, he wouldn't even listen to it. He just didn't care. He just went back to his room. And Dr. Shankarrajulu went to another room, sat there, began to chant the glorious Yogi Ramsuratkumar Nama. He was chanting and praying and chanting and praying and chanting and praying, like we all do. In the meantime, the atheist professor, after he returned to his room, miserable about what was going to happen the next day, for no fault of his, there was a sudden knock on the door. So when he opened, it was his own brother, Dr. Shankarrajulu, was standing there. What was more, Shankarrajulu would not speak anything. He just made a gesture asking him to follow. Now this atheist professor was a little confused. Why would Shankarrajulu come appear before him and ask him to follow? Anyway, in his confusion, he simply obeyed. He followed Dr. Shankarrajulu, who took him straight to one of the rooms there in the university. And there, when he opened the room, all those books purchased by the Vice Chancellor were there. The room was full of them. To the tune of several lakhs he had bought it. He had truly bought it, though he denied it. So this professor was stunned when he saw that, and in his excitement, he started to collect the most prominent books, and in so doing, he forgot the presence of his brother. And then when he collected and turned out, his brother had disappeared, but it did not bother him. He was all excited. He ran with all those books to the Vice Chancellor's room. But this case was dragging on for so long. The old Vice Chancellor had retired and a new Vice Chancellor had taken over. So the professor ran to the Vice Chancellor, the new Vice Chancellor's room, submitted all these books as an evidence. The new Vice Chancellor understood the whole thing and he promised his support. And then the next day, this professor was freed from all this. Now before that, after he collected those books and showed it to the new Vice Chancellor, the atheist professor came back to Dr. Shankarrajulu's room. He knocked at the door. Dr. Shankarrajulu came and opened. And then the atheist professor asked him, "How did you know?" Dr. Shankarrajulu said, "What? What did I know?" No, you came to my room. You took me to one of the back rooms in the university and showed me all those purchased books. Dr. Shankarrajulu, it was his turn to be shocked. Dr. Shankarrajulu denied it outright. He said, "What are you saying? I've been here chanting his name and praying. I never came out of my room. And you are saying that I came all the way and took you to the room." And suddenly the understanding came. Suddenly it dawned on both of them, it should be the divine. And Dr. Shankarrajulu knew instantly it was Bhagwan Yogi Ramsuratkumar who came in his form, went and knocked at the door of his brother, because his brother would not have opened the door for anyone else. And his brother did not inquire how Dr. Shankarrajulu knew that room, because Dr. Shankarrajulu was new to the whole place. Now the atheist professor started to cry. He melted. He was completely overwhelmed. Without any love for Yogi Ramsuratkumar, just because his brother was chanting his name, the glorious name, and praying, Yogi Ramsuratkumar condescended to bless him. So, needless to say, that this atheist professor who used to mock at people who worshipped gods now turned into a staunch devotee of God, a devotee of Yogi Ramsuratkumar. Such is the glory of the name. So when you call out the name Yogi Ramsuratkumar rushes to help you. So dear devotees of Bhagwan, what can be more assuring than this? There are ever so many incidents where he has proved it again and again. So let us go on chanting more and more and more this glorious name and submit them at his lotus feet and then pray to him. So we shall start our evening prayer with a very short story, a story of his glory, his Nama's glory. There is Kavitha, Sarathi, Vedika, a family from Bombay who used to come here, and Mrs. Kavitha became the architect of the ashram. It is she who laid the flooring of Pradhan Mandir. Her daughter, Vedika, a few years back, when those people had come to the ashram, Vedika was only 8 years. When she was playing around, I called her and asked her if she would be chanting Yogi Ramsuratkumar's Nama. She said no. Then I said, why don't you learn it? I would teach you. And then I taught her the name and I asked her to keep on chanting it, especially if there was some difficulty at school or at home or otherwise. She promised very earnestly, and then she went away. She went back home. She was attending school every day, and then she forgot all about it. Like every other child, playful and busy with her studies, she did not give much importance to the name. And then one day, when she had come to the school, to her computer class, suddenly she remembered she had forgotten her computer file. What was more, this computer ma'am was visiting the class. She was going round from table to table to table. When she was a few tables away, this girl got the fright of her life, because that ma'am is very famous for her strictness. She was very strict that the girl was terrified. She thought, what kind of punishment ma'am would give? She would start scolding me. What will I do? She became desperate and she did not know what to do. And suddenly, she remembered what I said, the Nama. The Nama inside her made her remember exactly at the moment she needed it. That's again the glory of Nama. We have just offered the Nama Sankirtan at the holy feet of Bhagwan. Now at this point, we shall start our prayer with another story, a true story of his glory, his Nama's glory. A devotee by name Kavitha from Virudhunagar has been visiting for some time the Bhajan Ashram of Shivakasi to worship the beautiful Murti there. Once in 2015, on her visit, she offered a brand new hand fan for the Murti of Bhajan Ashram. Shri Kumaravel, who is running the temple, happily took it for Bhagwan and gave an old fan used for Bhagwan's Murti as prasad to her. Kavitha was very happy. Back in Virudhunagar, one day she was sitting outside her house. She saw a crow sitting on top of an electric post just outside the house. Suddenly, the crow screamed alarmingly and fell down on the road with a thud, with a loud thud. She understood it must have had an electric shock. She ran out and saw a lot of blood near the head of the crow. It was slowly dying. She remembered hearing somewhere, if Nama is being chanted in the ears of any dying soul, it would help them in their further journey after death. They would reach a higher state. So now, remembering it, with a heart filled with pity and compassion, she sat by the side of the crow right on the road and began to chant Yogi Ramsuratkumar Nama loudly. Not only that, she called her son and daughter also to join in the name. In the meantime, people began to stop by and asked her, hey, what is all this? What is happening? Have you gone mad? They would laugh and leave. But our Kavitha did not care in the least. In the meantime, ants began to gather around the crow because of the blood. Sensing the blood, two dogs tried to come near and hovering around. Above all, many crows started gathering up on the nearby buildings. With their cries, loud cries, together, they were creating a deafening noise. They were trying to come near to peck on her, but the Nama gave her the strength to continue against all odds. She asked her son to get some ant powder to keep the ants away, asked her daughter to bring some water to put in the mouth of the crow. Now more people dropped by to mock. Suddenly she remembered the Prasad hand fan, had it brought, and started fanning the crow. All she wanted was for the crow to leave the body peacefully for a higher, further journey. But alas, what happened was something else. The crow started to stir, tried to get up. To her utter delight and surprise, it staggered its way up, flew to the nearest wall and sat. Now the other crows began to shout more as though to cheer up their friend's attempt. With great vigor and wonder, Kavitha and the son and daughter began to chant more loudly now. Within minutes, the blessed crow simply flew away energetically, like a normal one, and joined the other crows. The trio was beside themselves with joy. By then, a small crowd had collected on the road to watch the show of great wonder. Indeed, the blessed crow was truly graced by Bhagwan's Nama, thanks to the good Samaritans, the large-hearted, devoted family of Kavitha. Our humble pranams of admiration to Srimati Kavitha and family. We have all chanted such glorious name and offered it at Bhagwan's lotus feet. Now you know, for all those people in different stages of suffering, afflicted with a disease, how this Nama can work wonders.